Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and patch 11.1, the update of Undermine, is finally getting a bit of a preview, and hopefully we'll be getting a testing version of this patch very soon. The Undermine update brings with it Season 2 content and a ton of different class changes that so far have been getting data mined, and they've also done a bit of a preview as to what we can expect out of this upcoming update, from the new zone, the factions, delves, seasonal content like dungeons, PvP, and raiding, but also even more info like tier sets and how they'll function, new mounts that we'll be able to uncover and earn, how the factions of the goblin cartels will function, and even give us a bit of a sneak preview as to how the new movement system of d.r.i.v.e will function. And there's so much more to discover once the 11.1 update goes into the public testing realms, which we'll cover on the channel fairly regularly. But for now, I want to take a closer look at some of the features and previews and additional details that we've been able to uncover as of yesterday's update. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for 11.1 or see some of the different class changes arriving with this update, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So as part of the preview, they first of all talked about the new zone of Undermine, which we knew a little bit about, but they gave us a bit more information with this newest update, where we'll be able to, on a much deeper level, explore the Goblin Society and inject even more storylines into the whole Goblin race as a whole, where they're normally treated kind of as a joke race, but they also want to find a way to connect some of those Goblin stories back to the World Soul Saga and the War Within, so it doesn't feel like the patch is going to be kind of like a detour from the main overarching plotline of the World Soul Saga, but rather us diving deeper into the underground zones while also being able to mingle with some of the Goblin cartels. Speaking about those cartels, they actually have a little bit more information regarding some of the rewards that we'll be able to earn with those cartels, which will be both functional but also a ton of cosmetic options. And there'll be a variety of different experiences to be offered with these cartels, which will kind of function similar to the renowned factions that we get to work with, but instead they'll actually have some gameplay elements as well, like the actual experiences out in Undermine, depending on which cartel you go with, is going to be slightly different, like the objectives, how they talk to you, as well as some of the rewards that you'll be able to collect from these cartels, which will hopefully offer a little bit of more variety of experiences within the Undermine, especially if you're looking to play alts going forward. And of course, with all these cartels, as you advance your relations with these cartels, you'll be able to get a bunch of rewards from transmogs, car customizations, and car changes and augments in terms of how it functions out in the open world, but also new flying mounts, a bunch of different toys, cosmetics, and other variety of rewards, which hopefully will be fairly unique from one cartel to the next. But I'm expecting there's probably going to be plenty of similarity, just recolors depending on which cartel that you work with you eventually working your way through all of the cartels to maximum standing on a single character over time. And one of the things you'll be able to get from these cartels is augments to your vehicle, which will be how we'll be traversing around the Undermine, where we can't necessarily fly in the actual zone of Undermine, but we'll be going through a ground mount system called d.r.i.v.e or d.r.i.v.e, which is a different system compared to normal ground mounts. It's kind of like taking the original idea of skywriting and all its maneuverability elements, but trying to find a way to engineer them to work for ground mounts. And they even gave us a bit more information how d.r.i.v.e will function. d.r.i.v.e as a system will be about 3 to 5 times faster than a normal ground mount, which means you'll be able to cover quite a bit of distance very quickly. And when you compare d.r.i.v.e compared to skywriting, essentially d.r.i.v.e is just a little faster than skywriting when skywriting is at its full speed. So it means that we'll be able to get through the zone very quickly, even if you are grounded, but you'll still be able to make quite a significant bit of progress as you get through the entire zone. Which makes you wonder if Undermine is going to be probably one of the bigger zones, underground zones we'll be able to traverse into, very similar to how the expansion of Dragonflight with the Dragon Isles was designed around dragon riding, and the zones were made to be scaled up by a ton because of this extra maneuverability, speed, and movement. When it comes to the cars within the drive system, you'll be able to customize a variety of things about the cars, from its ride colors, but also how fast the vehicle goes and what type of speeds and boosts that it offers, but also the drifting and a variety of different components to deal with its handling. And a lot of the customization for the vehicle, as far as we know, is tied to the handling of the vehicle rather than purely cosmetic. So you may be able to get certain wheels or a different engine, but those things will end up having some kind of a functionality value to them, not just the looks factor added. So it'll be a bit of this own progression system for us to delve into in 11.1. Aside of this, they also gave us some more info regarding seasonal content such as delves, which are going through a variety of different changes. When it comes to delves and rewards in particular, we learned that you'll be able to get a brand new mount for delves, but also new ways to customize that mount that are going to be very goblin aesthetic. And the way that you earn these customizations are going to be around the season 2 content of delves in particular. When it comes to new delves, we'll be able to get two. One is essentially a goblin sewer, and the other is an excavation site where you have some of the voidy elements overtaking a lot of these titan constructs, and how goblins are involved in that type of an excavation site and what it holds, which is kind of how they're trying to link in the whole World Soul Saga and War Within with this whole goblin aesthetic and goblin storylines in mind. With delves, we'll also be getting another fight very similar to d.r.i.v.e, a big boss encounter that you could tackle on with the groups, but there's going to be even more rewards for slaying it as a solo player. Besides this, expect even more cosmetics from delves, but also a change to Bran. Previously, we learned that Bran was going to be able to get a new mode. Bran is apparently going to be staying as our companion for delves throughout this entire expansion, instead of switching them out from season to season with a different companion. Like, we already knew that Bran was going to be able to get access to a tanking role, but also there's going to be more impacts to how Bran is going to function with some of the older curios getting adjusted, but also some of the new goblin curios that are going to be arriving with this update. And it seems like, from what they made it sound like in the preview, that curios are going to be a little bit more impactful, as they're going to be a lot better and tuned to be a little bit stronger, because a lot of the current curios are not that strong, but the new curios and how Bran will be able to utilize those, it does sound like Bran is getting quite a bit of a step up in terms of the amount of damage and effectiveness he's about to get within season 2 of delves. There's apparently going to be even a special curio for defeating the challenge encounter, the d.r.i.v.e version of the season 2 of delves, where Bran is going to be able to grant you a momentary use of a goblin mech that you get to jump into to enhance all of your combat capabilities within a delve. So it seems like a lot of work is being done for delves in season 2, but also when it comes to Bran and how Bran is going to be utilized as your companion going forward, which is really, really good to see when it comes to overall seeing delves progress as its own form of endgame progression. Aside of this, we also talked about other forms of PvP and PvE content for season 2, such as a new arena called Cage of Carnage, which seems like a much more smaller map, and they described it as more cutthroat. You'll notice that the map does not have as much line of sight. It's more of a team deathmatch, run in, slay the other team before they can slay you, and it's very much straightforward, and I wonder how that's going to impact and play within the overall PvP experience. Then when it comes to dungeons for season 2, we're getting a brand new dungeon of Operation Floodgate, which we were aware of before. That dungeon is going to have 4 new bosses, and you'll be able to enter this dungeon instantly. It'll be something that'll be available before season 2 content starts, but also after season 2 content fully launches as part of the season 2 lineup. When it comes to the raid, they said that all the raid as well as the difficulties are going to come out at a roughly similar time as we saw with Nerebar Palace, similar to things like the story mode eventually being made available, so players can go in and explore and see the final challenge of this raid. We'll also be able to get more of the storylines and the context and the cutscenes and get a variety of different rewards, even if you're someone who doesn't plan to raid within endgame content for season 2. Raid, they also said, is going to be visually more intense, and a lot of new mechanics are going to be incorporated into this raid. Some familiar mechanics that players have seen before, but also some brand new ones that apparently we've never touched and never experienced before ever. They're also looking to change up visually how the raid functions and make it so that you will need less reliance on add-ons or weak auras to be able to complete these fights even on higher difficulties. As in, they're trying to add a lot more visual clarity into these encounters so players are aware in obvious ways of what you must be doing in order to defeat the boss, instead of having to rely on the weak aura or timers from add-ons in order to help you figure out exactly how you're supposed to approach any of these fights, which is something that's exciting to see. And that's something that a lot of players wanted to see, is less reliance on add-ons, specifically when it comes to endgame progression. So I wonder how well that'll work out once we get to test all of these instances once it is available on PTR for testing. Also, you'll be able to get a T-Rex mount from the T-Rex boss Amachosaur, which I think is going to be our very first time getting access to a T-Rex mount, even though we had some dinosaur-inspired expansions and patches in previous updates. Also, with the new season, we got brand new tier sets with all new appearances for every class to collect, and there's a lot of them so far. A bunch of them being data mined right now, but some of them could be seen in the previews, but also the tier sets are going to function very differently in season 2. There'll be a 2-set bonus and a 4-set bonus, though the 2-set bonus is going to be more unique to your role, which is a very unusual take. So we're going to have a lot of classes that share a very similar type of a tier set 2 bonus, but your 4-set is going to be more spec specific. So it'll be a new variation of how these sets will function. As an example, and this is just only a small part of some of the tier sets that are still being data mined as we speak right now and should hopefully be ready for testing on PTR very soon, but the tank example for Protection Warriors reads, each time you take damage, you have a chance to cast Shield Wall for 4 seconds, a fairly valuable defensive, and gain a new buff called Luck of the Draw, which increases your damage dealt by 15% for 10 seconds. During Luck of the Draw, Shield Slam's chance to critical strike is increased by 50%, and its critical strikes reduces the cooldown of shield charge by 6 seconds. And most of the other tanks will have a very similar functionality where anytime they take damage, they have a chance to activate one of the big defenses and gain Luck of the Draw with a sizable damage buff. And then Luck of the Draw will function differently for every single one of the specs depending on how some of the mechanics work. So for Warriors, cooldown reduction on something like a shield charge is actually kind of huge because it offers more damage, better crowd control capability since shield charge stuns, but also shield charge grants you defensive bonuses and has some crit damage scaling functionality. So there's a little bit of this crit focused gameplay for Prot that offers cooldown reduction, more defenses uptime, but also far more damage and crit damage scaling, which could be exciting if it's scaled well. But it gives you an idea of kind of how the tank tier sets will look like, and the fact that they are shared by most tanks in the game from some mechanic or another. A lot of players are still unsure exactly how it will function and may take away from some of the uniqueness of some of the tanks going forward. The healing example is that one for a Holy Priest. Your healing spells have a chance to apply a buff of insurance to a target that heals them for about, based on tooltip, 800k over 15 seconds. And when the ally with insurance drops below 40% health, they get instantly healed, which could allow for some emergency healing while also giving more throughput for healer if it procs well enough. And that is 2-set that's going to be shared amongst all healers. But the way that Holy Priest functions with it, they'll be able to use Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctify to apply insurance for 10 seconds to a single target while Apotheosis is active. Your healing is also increased by 1% for each buff of insurance that is active on an ally. So for Holy Priest, it plays with one of the baseline mechanics and encourages them to use a cooldown of Apotheosis specifically, making those talents a little bit better, while also granting them more throughput healing the more buffs of insurance they have. Technically could be very strong because there's some scaling value with this tier set bonus, but again, it's one of those hero sets that's also going to be shared by other healers as well. They cheat death and the healing over time component mechanic behind it, I actually kind of like, and I think that kind of cheat death protection or low health protection could be very, very strong, especially if the threshold is adjusted appropriately. That is being said, if it's tuned well and if the proc rate of the insurance buff is often enough, but it all depends once we actually get some testing done. Again, one of those tier sets that share between all healers but functions slightly differently for Holy. It will have its own functionality for Disc, Resto, Druid, and Shaman, but also all the other healers, and the same for DPS. So there's a couple of different components that the DPS classes will also overlap as well. But as of right now, that's going to be everything we got so far for the patch 11.1, which should hopefully be going up for actual testing over on the public testing realms. But this is going to be the entire preview of what the update of Undermine so far has to offer. As always, I want to thank all of you so much for watching and hope you guys did enjoy this update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very, very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community for more regular 11.1 updates, and we'll post there as regular as I possibly can be. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.